in World of Warships Legends, there's almost this rock, paper, scissors dynamic going on in the game where destroyers go after battleships, they go after cruisers, they go after destroyers. And most ships in this game follow that to a T. Most destroyers are good when you hunt down a battleship. Most cruisers come into their own when they gotta hunt down a destroyer. And many, many battleships are a dangerous, dangerous threat to nearly every cruiser they meet. But this ship throws that out the window. This is the Tier 8 Premium German destroyer, the Elbing. Now, the big thing about this ship, you go in, you look at the specs. 150 millimeter guns. This ship has cruiser guns on a destroyer. And many people would say, well, that's a little bizarre. And the point for this ship is it's a cruiser killing destroyer. So, how would I set it up? Well, the mods are very much helping these guns out. Because they are cruiser guns on a destroyer, they feel terrible in terms of turret traverse. So you've got to go with main battery mod 2. You can go for the dispersion, but the main battery mod really helps the turret traverse out. Steering gears is very important. As I said in the Lenin video, it allows you to kind of wiggle around and expose rear guns and put them back into place. Concealment, because it is still a destroyer and you don't want to be getting spotted as much as possible. And then for the last one, rather than the reload, you want the range. These are cruiser guns. They're not going to be horrible at range, unlike most destroyers. Their dispersion is insanely good for destroyer guns, so you really don't need to spec the reload. You want to use that range and keep that dispersion, so I go for Gunfire Control System Mod 2 in the fort slot. For my build, this build I have right now is not what I would use for the Elbing. I would go with Observant Rage. I would go for Mortar. I would go for Reaching Out. And finally, I would probably go for Keep Torpedo Royale. And I would likely use Leviathan rather than Unstoppable. This build is different because that was the main destroyer build, but as I said earlier, this is the Elbing. It is not a normal destroyer. So, now that you have the build, you have the commander, we're going to go into a game here and see what I can show you in the Elbing. Now, this ship is 1.4 million global XP. It is a lot, and the big question is it worth it? Now, we'll see in the gameplay that it's very different from what a destroyer has to do, and it's very much they call it in the history books, it would have been a scouting cruiser, and that fits it really a lot better than the destroyer moniker does. It doesn't look like any destroyer. It is massive compared to other destroyers. Its detectability is bad. Its torpedoes are okay. The guns are very powerful. So I wouldn't really kind of, it is in its almost class of its own. I would almost, if you looked and compared it more to the light cruisers it might face, it would probably do just as good as it would against the destroyers. So because it's essentially going against that rock, paper, scissors dynamic, it's bad against its own class. And there's not many destroyers, maybe the Palomilla, that is worse at dealing with an enemy destroyer. So the best way to play the Elbing as we come in here on Riposte is probably not to hunt the enemy destroyers as much as you can. Now, granted, you are still a destroyer. You still are better hunters than most battleships. Not many cruisers are going to be worse than you, though. So they should be the ones really doing it. So we look at the team here. We see where we've got 2 destroyers. We've got 3 cruisers. Actually, we've got a little bit of a divisiveness here. We've got 4 cruisers in our team for 3 battleships. They've got 4 battleships for 3 cruisers. We have a Colorado in here, so we do have a failed division in here. So I'm not actually going to go into alpha here. That's not that's not the smart move. You got to play the Elbing a lot like a Russian destroyer, and that you're not very good at contesting capture circles. So you should only be going into capture circles when you're most likely not going to be attacked. You can see the torpedoes are alright. 90-second reload isn't bad. They're woefully slow. I mean, you guys can probably swim faster than these torpedoes can, so that's a major downside. The torpedoes are not very good. The concealment is bad at 5.9, but I have 12.8 kilometer main battery range. The torpedoes do go very far, which is the upside to being so slow, is they do pack a punch and they go very far. As you can see, my consumable layout isn't very advanced. I don't get the Hydra that most German destroyers gets that immediately takes off around 60 to 75% of the destroyer hunting capabilities of this German destroyer. It has DFAA, which is alright, but because it has DFAA confirmed, because it has DFAA as standard, you essentially only have one consumable you'll use in most games, and that's your smoke screens. So you can see he's asking for some support. I'm not really going to push in until I know there's not a destroyer, and there is not a destroyer. There's a destroyer in Charlie and a destroyer in Bravo. So I'm going to start sneaking in here. But unlike other destroyers where I may try and get deep into the cap circle, I'm going to be on an immediate retreat. As you can see, there is a Tulsa coming in. There's a good chance we're going to get hit by him, but we're going to keep the smoke screen away, just for the simple fact of that we won't get hit very hard. Tulsa's going to bring out the radar. But this is where the Elbing is going to shine. No citadels, but over 7,000 damage in the ship. You can see we're getting wailed on here. Our engine is out. We don't have the DCP. We do have a Salem that could help, but he's sitting behind the rock. So I'm now radared, and I'm likely dead. What could I have done differently here? Well, I shouldn't have been so aggressive, knowing that my cruiser wouldn't have actually pushed out at all. Knowing that if my cruiser had sat behind the rock, you shouldn't really push out in an Elbing. You need some support for the things that are going to kill you. So we're dead, first blood, unfortunately. But that's what happens when your DPM cruiser doesn't really want to help. Doesn't really seem to want to help, and sits behind and seems to want to ambush ships that aren't coming towards him. So, again, not much damage, not much done in the Elbing, but there's not much you can do when your team doesn't want to support you in an Elbing. So it's a very hard ship to play solo. You can't really go in very aggressively, especially if your team doesn't want to. Would I recommend the ship for 1.4 million global XP? I would not recommend it. There are way better options. The Republic is a great battleship and is much more capable. The Hayate is just a better destroyer in general. But if you do have 1.4 million global XP lying around and you don't really have anything else to buy, I guess you could buy it. Unless you don't have the Stalingrad. Even then, I probably would recommend the Stalingrad, because of that situation right there. It's not very easy to get away once you get stuck into a situation. It's a brawling destroyer almost in some regards. Alrighty, well, unfortunately, I'm not going to let you guys wait here for the end of this battle. This video is going to be very short, but that's how we do it with live gameplay. That is how we're going to do it with the live gameplay. Some videos may be short, some videos may be long. Thank you so much for watching. We'll catch you guys next time. Please remember to like and subscribe to this video. Comment down below if you guys want any of the ships that I can review. I do have over 370 ships, so that means I do have a wide selection of ships if you guys want to recommend a ship for me to review for you guys. And yeah, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.